Hello, all. So I just saw the last episode of Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 1. So here's my review on the season as a whole. Okay? Now, first off, I just want to give some props to some things done in this show that I hadn't seen before. First prop is this is the first TV show I've ever seen that literally had no filler. 10 straight episodes, each one integral to the plot, all the scenes integral to the plot. There was no filler whatsoever. If you watched all 10 episodes back to back to back, you're literally just watching a really long movie. You're literally just watching Evil Dead 4. Because it is just one big movie cut up into episodes. And I had never seen that before. Personally, it's very hard for me to get into a lot of TV shows because there's so much filler. It often feels like the TV show is just spinning its wheels and never getting a main plot thread. And that kind of scares me away from a lot of TV shows. Like Flash, for example, or Arrow. They're good shows for the most part, but they have so much filler, they don't feel like they have a main plot thread. And it just feels like the tires of the show is spinning, and it's not going anywhere. This show had no filler. And that was just extremely impressive and very appreciative. And like I said, if you watched all the episodes back to back to back, this is Evil Dead 4. That's all there is to it. Prop number 2 is there was so much blood in this, so much gore. Each episode had a whole bunch of it. There was just heads decapitated, heads exploding, people gutted, people cut in half, chainsaws used, boomsticks used. Any way a person could die, they died in this show. And it got so violent, so over the top, that makes Evil Dead, the saga, the 4 films, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, the remake, and Ash vs. Evil Dead, the TV show, it makes that series the goriest horror series, be it movies or shows, ever. It's the goriest, it's now officially the goriest horror movie series, period. I know some fans of horror will debate me on this and they'll point out, oh, I saw this and it was more gory, or oh, I saw this and it was a lot more disturbing. I'm just talking pure amount of blood and pure amount of carnage. Like, call up Guinness, because this show earned it. It was over the top every single episode. We went well into Monty Python levels, well into Japanese splatter flicks levels. This was just so much blood. It was like utterly over the top. It was like Did Alive style times by 10. It was atrociously awesome. Also, now going to the main show, it had a great soundtrack. There was a lot of good old school songs, old school rock songs throughout the show that I loved. Very good soundtrack. The comedy stayed very solid. There was a few episodes that I didn't laugh out loud at, but it always had this funny, charming feel to it. Always had this light going feel that was very charming, and it had a lot of jokes that worked, and there was a lot of very solid one-liners from Ash and from the other characters. Like, one of my favorite scenes was Ash is standing over a dead body of himself, spoilers a bit, and he's like, oh man, I gotta cut off myself with a chainsaw. Maybe one day that'll actually feel weird. Like, oh, it's just such an iconic moment. And then they play a campy old romantic song over it. Just the two of us. Oh my God, it's just great one-liners, then great jokes, then build-ups of comedy. Like, this is funnier than pretty much everything else on TV right now. This was the funniest thing at some times. Not throughout, but at some moments, it was the funniest thing. And I liked the new characters like Pablo and Kelly. I thought they were well handled. Another thing that I thought was well handled is Ash in this show, he grew up a bit. He learned to care about people a bit more. In one episode, Kelly's possessed by a demon, and she's like, kill me, Ash, bury me with a cross. And Ash is like, she wouldn't want a cross. She's Jewish. And it really showed how much he got to know these characters and how much he cared about these characters. So I really liked the fact that he grew up a bit in this. I really did. Now, if I have to say something bad about this, it would be what was done with the Amanda character. They forced a romantic subplot between Ash and Amanda, and it really came out of left field. It really felt forced. It really felt out of place. It's just, he came on to her. She said no thanks. He came on to her harder. She said, hey, let's go out. No one acts like that. In real life, she'd kick him in the balls. And I like the idea of Ash being kicked in the balls. As I explained in my original review, I like the idea of Ash falling on his face and being a fool. That's what makes the character work in my book. So the fact that she didn't kick him in the balls is kind of a disappointment. And when it becomes very clear that they only developed that romantic relationship so she could be killed off and her death would have more weight, it does feel a bit shallow. So yeah, that didn't work too well. That's my only complaint though, and I'm kind of nitpicking there. Everything else is awesome. I will state that the ending of season 1 is controversial. It ends in a way that you would never think a show like this would end. It's very like norm, and I feel that it will get a lot of fans mad at the show. So I guess maybe the ending is a possible con. But that's really it. And those are both small things. Otherwise, this show was awesome. It was really funny. It had a lot of gore. It had a great soundtrack. And it had great camera work. The camera work, like the comedy, wasn't amazing every single episode, but every now and then it had these really good moments with camera work here and there that looked pretty darn impressive, especially considering it's a TV show. So good camera work. I heard some fans complain that this didn't add enough to the Evil Dead mythology, but it actually did. It flushed out the demons a bit more than they've ever been flushed out a bit more. Like, we actually saw the demons, we saw what they looked like, we saw how they actually interacted with the world. All those were new ideas, and they were all greatly appreciated. So those were new elements to the Evil Dead world, and I loved them. So overall, ignoring my nitpicks because they're not even that big of a deal, I give this show a solid 10 out of 10. If you haven't seen it already, I'm kind of wondering what's taking you so long. Like, can you even call yourself an Evil Dead, like a horror fan or an Evil Dead fan if you haven't seen this? Well, of course you're still a horror fan, but still you gotta see this. You gotta see this. I loved it. My cat loved it. My sister loved it. My dad loved it. Everybody thought it was well on par with the films. Everyone I've talked to has loved it. This is definitely the best show I've seen in a long time. It's definitely in my top 5 list of greatest shows of all time. I can't wait for season 2. And I just hope it can somehow keep doing no filler and somehow keep that brilliant sense of comedy. But it feels like it's got to screw up sooner or later. So far, it hasn't. It's just that awesome. So if you haven't seen it, I'm saying it again, see it. It's like so blasted good.